You know how many people think they can get away with a cheap rack mount mixer from a random brand, only to end up fighting phantom power glitches and phantom level noise during a gig? I've seen that regret more times than I can count, and it makes the whole setup feel like a gamble before the first chord even hits the speakers. That hesitation is exactly why I wanted to dig into the Yamaha MGP24X premium mixing console before I hit record. The link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, the MGP24X sits in a sweet spot that a lot of small venue owners and serious home studio builders aim for: enough channels to handle a mid-size band, but not so many that you're drowning in routing options you'll never use. It gives you 16 MIC inputs, each with its own 48-volt phantom power and high-pass filter, which is a practical lifesaver when you're dealing with a vocal MIC that loves low-frequency rumble or a drum overhead that needs a quick roll-off. In a real-world rehearsal space I visited, the owner was able to plug a full drum kit, 3 vocal mics, a bass DI, and still have 2 line inputs left for keyboards without ever having to double up channels. That kind of flexibility keeps the console from becoming a bottleneck when a band adds a new instrument or a guest singer shows up. What really matters after you power it on is how the console handles day-to-day changes. The MGP24XS layout groups the 24 line inputs, 16 mono, 4 stereo, right next to the MIC section, so you can reach for a DI box or a line-level synth without hopping over a cluttered control surface. The 6 auxiliary sends and 2 FX sends stay in a column that makes it easy to route a vocal mix to the stage monitor while sending the guitars to a reverb unit. If you've ever tried to patch a live show on a console where the auxiliary knobs are buried behind a mountain of channel faders, you'll appreciate that this design keeps the essential routing knobs within arm's reach. That said, the console isn't a one-size-fits-all solution. For someone looking to run a large corporate conference with dozens of microphones and a complex matrix of video feeds, the MGP24XS 4-group buses and single stereo bus can feel limiting. The matrix out is a nice touch for splitting the main mix to multiple destinations, but you'll quickly run out of routing paths if you need separate feeds for a live stream, a house PA, and a monitor mix all at once. In those cases, a larger digital console with more group and matrix options would be a smarter investment. If you're wondering about sound quality, the MGP24X doesn't rely on flashy specs to prove its worth. The preamps are Yamaha's own D-class design, which many engineers note for delivering a clean, transparent gain that doesn't color the source. In practice, that means a vocal MIC will sound natural whether you're rolling off the low end at 80 Hz or pulling a 12 dB boost on a bass line. I tested the console with a singer-songwriter who was extremely sensitive to any hiss or hum. The noise floor was so low that the vocalist never had to add a noise gate in post-production. The built-in HPF per channel lets you keep the mix tight without having to insert external filters, which is a practical time saver during a live gig where you only have a few minutes between songs. One of the hidden trade-offs comes from the console's analog nature. Because it's not a fully digital board, you won't get the kind of recall functionality that lets you store a whole mix and pull it up the next night. That isn't a deal-breaker for many small venues or freelance engineers who treat each gig as a fresh canvas, but if you run a house band that needs to reproduce the same mix night after night, you'll have to rely on careful note-taking or a separate external snapshot system. On the upside, the analog signal path means there's no latency to worry about, which can be a subtle but noticeable benefit when you're monitoring a live performance in real time. Who should buy the MGP24X? If you're a band leader who books gigs at churches, community halls, or small clubs, this console gives you the channel count and routing flexibility to handle drums, vocals, keyboards, and a couple of line-level sources without having to rent additional gear. It's also a solid choice for a home studio that wants to record live bands. The combination of 16 microphone preamps and 24 line inputs means you can capture a full ensemble in one pass, then send the individual tracks to your DAW for overdubbing. The price point sits comfortably between entry-level mixers and the high-end digital workstations, so you're not overpaying for features you'll never use, but you also avoid the cheap mixer pitfalls that often bite new buyers. Who should skip it? If you're primarily a studio producer who works with dozens of tracks, relies heavily on internal effects, and needs deep automation, you'll likely find the MGP24X2.